right, so today we're diving into Osho
Okay.
and, specifically some of his, his ideas on women, on the feminine.
Right.
You sent over some excerpts from his Book of Women, and
Yeah.
I got to say, I'm intrigued. A little intimidated, but intrigued.
Yeah, Osho, he makes you think. And what's interesting here, he doesn't really approach it from like that typical men versus women angle, you know? It's deeper than that.
Deeper, how? Give me like the Twitter version.
Okay. Imagine you're looking at a sculpture, right? But you're not just stuck on one side. You're seeing it from every angle, inside and out. That's kind of Osho's perspective. He talks about experiencing life in both male and female forms. So he's looking at it from this place of pure awareness.
Okay.
Not just pro-women, but really understanding the core, the energy of the feminine itself.
So less about like Venus versus Mars, more like,
Yeah.
I don't know, the universe looking at itself.
Exactly. He gets at these like innate strengths in women, serenity, patience, this capacity for deep love, even childbirth, being this literal vessel for life. He talks about that as something we can never truly grasp.
It's almost like he's saying, in a world that's so obsessed with what men do, we've kind of overlooked the sheer power of just being.
Right.
Which is often, attributed to women.
And this like so-called passivity that's used to kind of dismiss women, Osho would say, hold on, that's actually a source of incredible strength. I mean, who tends to live longer? Who weathers emotional storms better?
Mm-hmm.
Makes you wonder if the rat race of traditional masculinity, maybe it comes at a cost.
Right. It's like we're conditioned to think ambition, risk-taking, that's the only path to, like, success.
Yeah.
But what if there's, like, a whole other way? One that taps into these qualities that Osho's talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're starting to see this imbalance a little bit. But where does the whole male ego fit into all of this? Because I'm getting the sense from Osho that he's not holding back on that front.
Not at all. He's suggesting that this need for dominance, for control, it often comes from a place of insecurity, Maybe societies that are built on suppressing the feminine are actually masking a deep fear in the masculine.
Wow. So it's not even about winning necessarily, but more about not knowing how to deal with this inner turmoil.
Exactly. And that's where the control comes in, right? He says true equality, it can't exist if one group is trying to dominate the other, even if it's, disguised as progress or, ironically, giving women more freedom.
Oh, he even calls that out, right?
Yeah.
That double standard of men saying women should be more free. Right at the moment when society is kind of shifting in a way that benefits them.
Right.
More partners, fewer strings attached. He sees right through that. Osho would ask, freedom for whom? And who benefits most from this arrangement? Yeah, it's a call to look beyond the surface and really examine the motivations.
And nowhere do those motivations become more clear than in relationships, which, if I'm not mistaken, Osho had some thoughts on. He did. Buckle up, because he challenges pretty much every fairy tale notion we have about love. Forget the knight in shining armor. True love isn't about finding your other half.
Hold on. So, no, we're like swooning over Mr. Darcy.
Well, not quite. But what he's getting at is so much of what we call love is really just fear of being alone, this desperate need to possess another person to feel whole. But that kind of love, rooted in neediness, it's bound to fall apart.
So what does healthy love look like in Osho's world?
He talks about a future where relationships are built on friendship, genuine respect, and most importantly, freedom. And not the romantic kind, but the freedom to be your full self without trying to change each other.
So less about fixing each other, more about getting each other.
Exactly. And what's interesting is he applies this to marriage, too, saying it often becomes this breeding ground for possessiveness, for resentment.
Okay, so is Osho, like, anti-marriage then?
Yeah.
Just free love everywhere?
No, not quite. He's not advocating for just fleeting encounters either. He's more interested in conscious relationships, where people are choosing to be together because they genuinely want to be, not because of, societal pressure or fear of ending up alone.
It's like he's saying before you can love someone else, you really have to love and understand yourself.
Yeah, and that self-love, that inner freedom, it changes the whole game. But we can't talk about Osho and love without addressing the elephant in the room. Or should I say, between the sheets.
When I think Osho and sex, the first thing that pops into my head is definitely not between the sheets. It's more like, I don't know, tearing down the whole house.
That's a good way to put it, because for Osho, sexuality, it wasn't just about, like, physical pleasure, although he was definitely pro-pleasure. But he saw it as this gateway, this potential to tap into something way bigger.
Bigger how? Are we talking like tantric skydiving here?
You know, it's funny you say that because Osho talks about this orgasmic potential, this state of like no mind, timelessness. And you can get there, he says, through sexual experience. Yeah. He compares it to meditation, to merging with something beyond the ego.
Well, okay, so less Kama Sutra, more like, I don't know, the cosmos is your bedroom.
Exactly. And he argues that society, especially in how we condition women around sex, has robbed us of this potential. Like women have been shamed for owning their sexuality, for experiencing the full depth of their pleasure.
It's like we've been taught to fear that kind of power, both in ourselves and especially in women.
And that fear, Osho would say, it has consequences. He connects sexual repression, especially for men, to a decrease in intelligence, like a dulling of the senses. He even suggests that contraceptives were like a huge turning point for women.
How so?
Well, because they allowed sex to become more about pleasure, connection, less about the fear of getting pregnant.
So you're saying the pill actually helped unlock some of this orgasmic potential Osho's talking about?
He suggests as much, yeah. By removing that fear of unwanted pregnancy, women are freer, right? To explore their sexuality, to connect to their bodies on a deeper level. And that exploration, he says, can lead to greater self-awareness, even spiritual awakening.
It's like he's saying, instead of seeing sex as this taboo thing, we should be looking at it as a path to greater consciousness. And not just for men, but especially for women.
Exactly. He challenges us to rethink our whole relationship with our bodies and see pleasure not as this distraction from spirituality, but as a potential path to it.
That's a pretty radical perspective, even today. But speaking of radical perspectives, let's talk about Osho's views on motherhood, because he doesn't exactly buy into that whole Earth Mother stereotype, does he?
Not exactly. He goes beyond that conventional view of motherhood as just, giving birth. He sees it as an art form, this profound responsibility that shapes, like, the future of humanity.
I'm getting this, like, with great power comes great responsibility vibe from him.
But what does he mean by art form exactly? Well, Osho believes that true motherhood, it's about guiding a child's spirit, right?
Yep.
Nurturing their individuality, not trying to mold them into, like, a mini-me. He says every child is born this blank slate, full of potential, but also, susceptible to the influences around them.
So less about imposing your values and more about giving them the space to discover their own.
Exactly. Osho even compares raising a child to, like, hosting a guest in your home. You offer warmth, you offer nourishment, guidance, but ultimately you respect their freedom to choose their own path.
It's like he's saying, treat children as the unique individuals they are, not just extensions of yourself.
Right. And this respect for individuality, it extends to how we view and treat women in general. Osho, he was really critical of this obsession with physical beauty, especially for women.
Yeah.
He saw it as this distraction from cultivating real, true inner beauty.
So we're talking about going beyond the surface, like less makeup, more mindfulness.
More than that, even. Osho would say true beauty, it radiates from within. It's about embracing your authentic self. Wrinkles, laugh lines, all of it.
He was way ahead of his time on that one, the whole self-acceptance movement. Osho was there first.
Absolutely. He was so critical of this pursuit of eternal youth, especially in Western cultures. He saw it as a symptom of our fear of aging, of death. And that fear, it prevents us from fully embracing the present moment.
It's like we're so busy trying to fix our outsides, we forget to nurture what truly matters, our inner world.
And for Osho, that inner work, it was key to everything. Self-love, fulfilling relationships, even creating a more harmonious world. He believed that by understanding and integrating both the masculine and the feminine within ourselves, we could unlock this deeper level of consciousness, create a more balanced way of being.
Okay, hold on. Break that down for me. We've been talking about masculine and feminine energies this whole time. But what does that actually look like in our day-to-day lives?
Well, Osho uses this beautiful phrase, the crystallization of being. And that's how he describes this state of integration.
Okay.
It's not about suppressing one or the other, but finding this harmonious balance between logic and intuition, action and receptivity, strength and vulnerability.
So less about choosing a side, more about finding that sweet spot where both of these energies can kind of coexist.
Exactly. He believed that this internal integration, it wasn't just possible, it was essential. for our personal growth and for creating a more just, a more harmonious society.
Okay, but how do we actually do that? How do you bridge that gap between these seemingly opposite forces within ourselves?
Well, Osho was a big believer in self-awareness, cultivating a deep understanding of our thoughts, our emotions, even our conditioned patterns.
Yeah.
He saw meditation as a really powerful tool for that inner exploration, like a way to quiet the mind and access a deeper level of consciousness.
So it's like he's saying you want to change the world. Start by understanding your own internal world. Explore those hidden corners, the shadow and the light.
Exactly. He believed that real lasting change on a personal level, a global level, it starts with inner transformation. And that transformation, it's a process. It's a journey of self-discovery that never really ends.
It's not like a quick fix, right?
Right.
It's not like you achieve crystallization of being and then you just kick back and you're done.
No, definitely not. Osho saw life as this constant dance between those masculine and feminine energies. It's a dance that takes constant awareness, constant adjustment. But he believed by embracing that dance, by finding that inner balance, that's how we create a more harmonious, more fulfilling experience for ourselves, for everyone around us.
So less about reaching a destination, more about learning to enjoy the journey itself, the ups, the downs, the whole thing.
That's a great way to put it. And one of the ways that Osho encouraged people to embrace life, the fullness of it, was through their senses. He wanted us to rediscover the joy of just being alive. The taste of a ripe strawberry, the feeling of the sun on your skin, the sound of laughter.
It's like he's saying, wake up, pay attention. You're surrounded by miracles if you just open your eyes to see them.
Exactly. And that sense of wonder, of being fully present, that's a huge part of what he means by embracing the feminine. It's approaching life with this childlike curiosity, this willingness to be surprised, to be moved, to be fully alive in each moment.
And isn't there this sense of playfulness in that too? Not taking ourselves so seriously, allowing ourselves to be silly, to be spontaneous?
Absolutely. Osho, he believed that playfulness was essential for spiritual growth. He saw it as a way to break free from all that rigid thinking, to loosen the grip of the ego and just connect with joy, with freedom.
So less about achieving enlightenment in the cave, more like finding it on the dance floor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He wanted people to bring that playfulness into everything, find joy in the ordinary stuff, approach life as a celebration, not some kind of chore.
And that celebration, that joy, it doesn't just disappear as we get older, right? Because Osho had some pretty radical views on aging, too.
He did. He challenged that whole idea of aging as this decline. He saw it more as a deepening, like a ripening. He argued that as we age, we shed these old identities, these attachments, and it allows us to connect with a deeper wisdom, a deeper authenticity.
So those wrinkles we're taught to fear, they're really badges of honor, signs of a life well lived.
Exactly. Osho believed that every stage of life, it has its own beauty, it has its own potential, and that by embracing these natural cycles, including death, that's how we can experience a deeper sense of peace, a deeper sense of fulfillment.
That's a powerful perspective, especially in a culture that's obsessed with youth and terrified of death. Osho, he wasn't afraid to talk about death, though, was he?
No, not at all. He saw it not as an ending, but as this transformation, a transition into a new dimension of being.
It's like he's saying, you can spend your whole life afraid of dying.
Right.
Or you can choose to embrace it as just this inevitable part of the journey.
And that acceptance, that willingness to embrace the unknown, that's at the very heart of his philosophy. It's about surrendering to the flow of life, trusting in something bigger than ourselves, finding the courage to really live, even though we know everything's impermanent.
Which brings us right back to embracing the feminine, doesn't it?
It does.
This ability to be present, to be open, to kind of surrender to the flow of life without needing to control every little outcome.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance between doing and being, between striving and accepting, between those masculine and feminine energies within us all.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Osho's world, I'm left with this thought. Could it be that embracing the feminine in ourselves, in our relationships, and society as a whole is the key to unlocking a more joyful, more compassionate, ultimately more fulfilling experience for everyone? I feel like Osho would probably just look at us with that twinkle in his eye and say, what do you think?
Probably.